what's your overall perspective now a week after this raid?
Well, it was outrageous, reckless abuse of power. That was my initial response. And of course, as the details of the corrupt DOJ's raid on Biden come out, you just get further and further confirmation. Look, I saw early on, back in February when this first became public, this dispute, that the DOJ and the archives were making up new rules for Donald Trump. And the new rules were that it doesn't matter that you were president. Any documents you have are our documents. The prior position of the archives, the prior position of the Justice Department has been, well, if the president has them after he leaves office, they're presumptively personal. So they changed their rules, and you know why, because you've seen it up close. It's because they want to target Trump and come up with any reason they can to target him. And one of the reasons I was so really outraged about their new position was because the prior position was used to stop Judicial Watch from getting access to Bill Clinton's records. He had tapes of interviews he had had with an author that recorded him talking to foreign leaders, which is presumptively classified, right, with government officials such as members of Congress. And he didn't turn those tapes over to the archives. He kept those tapes in his sock drawer. So we saw that and we said, well, why isn't this covered by the Presidential Records Act? So we sued the archives, and the archives came back to us and said, you're all wet. They said that the Justice Department attorney representing the archives in the case said, well, if Clinton has them, we just presume they're personal records. And indeed, Judge Beryl Howell, as you know, is one of the most liberal members of the district court here in the D.C. in the District of Columbia. She ruled that Judicial Watch, again, should go jump in the lake. That you can't get behind the decision of a president to denote certain records as personal versus presidential records. And obviously that applies similarly to any classified records in that group of documents. So the Justice Department's position until Trump has been, he can take whatever records he wants. He's able to designate records as personal or presidential. He has ultimate, obviously, classification authority to both classify and declassify information. And the presumption is if they're in his custody after the White House, we leave them alone. And they changed all those rules, and they engaged in an abusive raid in the sense that there was no legal basis for the raid based on their own legal analysis prior to just targeting Trump. So my view is this is as corrupt as the FISA warrants, and every document they took should be returned.